My name is Abigail Reynolds, and at 34, I built a thriving dental clinic from nothing but determination and countless sleepless nights. Family is supposed to be your backbone, but sometimes they become the weight that threatens to break it. After years of loan payments, ramen dinners, and working until my hands cramped, my practice finally turned profitable. Now, suddenly, the same relatives who never believed in my little tooth business are showing up with partnership agreements and entitled demands. Before I dive into how my own blood tried to take what I built, drop a like and subscribe if you've ever had to protect what's rightfully yours. If you're watching from somewhere where family drama hits close to home, let me know in the comments. We're in this together. Growing up in a modest neighborhood in Brookline, just outside Boston, my parents always emphasized education. Get good grades, go to college, make something of yourself, they'd say over dinner in our small but comfortable home. What they didn't mention was that their encouragement wouldn't extend to financial support for higher education. My father, Mark, worked as a mid-level manager at an insurance company, and my mother, Catherine, taught second grade at the local elementary school. We were comfortable, but not wealthy by any stretch. My interest in dentistry began when I was 15. After years of dreading dental visits, I met Dr. Sarah Winters, who completely transformed my experience. Unlike previous dentists who made me feel like just another set of teeth, Dr. Winters explained every procedure with patience and genuine care. She fixed my slightly crooked front teeth that had made me self-conscious throughout middle school. For the first time, I smiled without covering my mouth. That day, watching Dr. Winters confidently move around her office, respected, independent, making a tangible difference in people's lives, I found my calling. I'm going to be a dentist, I announced at dinner that night. My mother smiled politely while my father nodded absently. My brother James, 2 years older and already the family favorite with his charismatic personality and business ambitions, laughed. Teeth? You want to spend your life looking into people's mouths? Gross. Despite their lukewarm reaction, I researched pre-dental programs while finishing high school with a 4.0 GPA. I applied for every scholarship possible, but still came up short for Boston University's tuition. My parents sat me down senior year for the talk I'd been dreading. We've put aside some money for college, my father explained, but not enough for dental school. That's medical school prices. James is already at Northeastern, my mother added. We're stretched thin with his business program. I understood their financial reality, but couldn't help noticing they never suggested James should apply for scholarships or work part-time. His education was non-negotiable, mine was a financial burden. Undeterred, I cobbled together a patchwork of partial scholarships, federal loans, and work-study programs. My undergraduate years became a blur of classes, labs, and jobs. While my friends attended football games and parties, I waited tables at Maggiano's on weekends and worked as a campus library assistant on weeknights. During summers, I added morning shifts at a local coffee shop, often working 16 hours before collapsing into bed, only to repeat the cycle the next day. James graduated with honors, and my parents threw him an extravagant party. When I made Dean's List 7 consecutive semesters while working 3 jobs, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," before changing the subject to James's new apartment in downtown Boston. Dental school proved even more challenging. The financial strain nearly broke me. My student loans ballooned to over $300,000. I lived in a tiny studio apartment with unreliable heating, eating ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, sleeping 4 hours a night if I was lucky. Many nights, I questioned my decision, especially when classmates with parental support seemed to navigate the program with far less stress. My younger sister Mackenzie, who had chosen a marketing degree at a state school, often called to complain about her overwhelming course load of 4 classes while I juggled clinical rotations, research projects, and part-time work at a dental supply company. "You chose the hard path," she'd say when I mentioned my exhaustion. "Nobody forced you to become a dentist." Despite everything, I graduated in the top 10% of my class. At the ceremony, as I crossed the stage to receive my diploma, I searched the audience for my family's faces. My parents were there, but left immediately after to attend James's business launch party. Mackenzie didn't come at all, citing a friend's birthday as a prior commitment. After graduation, I accepted an associate position at Beacon Hill Dental, a well-established practice in downtown Boston. The salary helped with my massive loan payments, but the environment was restrictive. Dr. Frank Mercer, the owner, ran the practice like an assembly line, scheduling patients every 30 minutes and pushing expensive cosmetic procedures regardless of necessity. "You're too slow, Reynolds," he'd complain when I spent extra time with anxious patients. Time is money. After 2 years at Beacon Hill and another year at a corporate dental chain with similar values, I knew I needed to create something different, a practice where patient care came first, where people weren't just mouths with wallets attached. One night, after a particularly frustrating day where I'd been reprimanded for wasting time explaining treatment options to an elderly patient, I sat at my small kitchen table with a notepad. I began sketching my ideal practice: comfortable rooms, transparent pricing, flexible scheduling for working families, payment plans for those without insurance. By morning, my dream had crystallized into a business plan. The decision terrified me. Continuing as an associate meant financial security, benefits, and predictable hours. Opening my own practice meant risking everything on an uncertain venture in an oversaturated market. But when I imagined spending another decade watching patients receive rushed, profit-driven care, I knew I had no choice. I called my parents to share my decision, hoping for encouragement. Instead, my father sighed. "Dental practices cost a fortune to start," he said. "Why not just stay where you are? The benefits must be good." "James just opened his second location," my mother added. "He says the market is terrible for new businesses right now." I hung up feeling deflated but more determined than ever. If no one would believe in me, I'd just have to believe enough for everyone. Securing financing became my first major hurdle. I approached 6 banks with my business plan, complete with market analysis, projected expenses, and anticipated growth. 6 loan officers looked at my massive student debt, limited collateral, and non-existent business credit before delivering variations of the same response: too risky. The 7th bank, a smaller local institution, finally took a chance. Loan officer Michael Peterson actually listened to my vision for patient-centered care. He approved a business loan that, while not covering everything I needed, gave me enough to start. I supplemented it by taking a second mortgage on my small condo, cashing out my modest retirement fund, and maxing out 2 credit cards. Finding affordable space presented the next challenge. Prime locations in downtown Boston exceeded my budget by laughable margins. After weeks of searching, I found possibility in Somerville, an up-and-coming neighborhood just outside the city. The building, a former insurance office, had stood vacant for nearly a year. The faded carpet smelled of cigarettes, water stains marred the ceiling tiles, and the outdated electrical system couldn't support modern dental equipment. But the rent was manageable, and the landlord offered 2 months free with a 5-year lease. I signed the papers, hands trembling with equal parts excitement and terror. The renovation costs quickly exceeded my estimates. Converting standard office space into a dental practice required specialized plumbing, reinforced flooring for heavy equipment, lead-lined walls for X-ray rooms, and comprehensive electrical upgrades. Each day brought new expenses: biohazard disposal systems, ADA-compliant bathrooms, specialized ventilation. I hired contractors for structural work but tackled cosmetic renovations myself to save money. After working part-time at another practice during days, I spent evenings painting walls, assembling furniture, and installing light fixtures. My dinner often consisted of a peanut butter sandwich eaten while sitting on a drop cloth, surrounded by paint cans and instruction manuals. With funds dwindling faster than anticipated, I swallowed my pride and approached my family for a small investment. I prepared a professional presentation, complete with market projections and a clear repayment plan with interest. "It's a terrible time to start a business," my father repeated after barely glancing at my numbers. "The economy's unstable." "I've already committed everything I have," I explained. "I just need a small cushion to cover unexpected expenses." My brother James, now running two successful mobile phone stores, leaned back in his chair. Abby, dentistry is oversaturated. Corporate practices are taking over. You can't compete as a solo practitioner. I'm not asking for much, I persisted. Even $10,000 would help, and I'd pay interest. We're helping Mackenzie with her wedding next year, my mother said. And we've invested in James's third location. There's simply nothing left. My sister Mackenzie at least feigned sympathy. I'd help if I could, Abby. Maybe when Ryan and I get back from our honeymoon in Bali, we could look at our finances. Her 3-carat engagement ring caught the light as she patted my hand. That help never materialized. I left their house that night knowing I was entirely on my own. Opening day arrived with minimal fanfare. No ribbon-cutting ceremony, no local press coverage, just me, unlocking the doors to Reynolds Family Dental with 3 patients scheduled and heart palpitations that felt like they might require medical attention. My reception area featured second-hand furniture I'd reupholstered myself. The walls displayed dental education posters rather than artwork I couldn't afford. The patient rooms contained quality equipment but lacked the high-tech bells and whistles of established practices. My first patient, elderly Mrs. Wilson, arrived clutching a newspaper clipping of my modest opening announcement. My last dentist retired, she explained. I thought I'd give someone new a chance. I treated her with such careful attention that she booked her next appointment before leaving and promised to tell her friends. Those referrals became my lifeline. Marketing consisted of whatever free or low-cost options I could find. Community bulletin boards, local Facebook groups, offering free dental education at nearby schools. I created special plans for uninsured patients, with transparent pricing and payment options that many larger practices didn't offer. That first year nearly broke me. Equipment malfunctions drained my emergency fund. Finding reliable staff proved challenging with my limited budget. I handled accounting myself, often making errors that took hours to correct. Many days, I arrived at 7 a.m. to handle paperwork, treated patients from 9 to 5, then cleaned the office myself to avoid janitorial costs before finally heading home after 8 p.m. I missed my college roommate's wedding because an emergency patient needed treatment. I caught bronchitis but worked through it because closing meant no income. I celebrated my birthday with a cupcake eaten alone at my desk between appointments. Yet slowly, almost imperceptibly, things improved. Patients returned. Referrals increased. My schedule began filling more consistently. By the end of that first year, despite operating at a significant loss, I felt the faintest flicker of hope that my gamble might eventually pay off. The next 3 years became a masterclass in endurance. I marked progress in small victories, the month I broke even on operating expenses, the day I received 10 new patient calls, the afternoon a patient brought me homemade cookies as a thank you for painlessly treating her child's cavity. Year 2 brought a steep learning curve in business ownership. When my dental supply representative suggested I should be taking a salary, I laughed until I realized he wasn't joking. The concept seemed impossible when every dollar went back into the practice. You need to pay yourself something, he insisted. Even if it's small. Otherwise, you'll burn out. I started with $1,000 a month, less than I'd made as a barista during college but enough to slightly ease my personal financial strain. My student loan servicers remained unsympathetic, and monthly payments consumed most of this modest salary. Family gatherings became increasingly rare in my schedule. I missed my cousin's baby shower to cover for a colleague who had promised to work but canceled last minute. I arrived at Thanksgiving dinner as dessert was being served because an emergency patient needed treatment for an abscess. Each absence added to my family's perception that I was choosing work over them, rather than fighting for survival. James always makes time for family, my mother commented when I called to explain missing my father's birthday celebration due to a patient emergency. Mackenzie's planning her whole wedding while working full-time, my father added. Everyone's busy, Abigail. What they couldn't, or wouldn't, understand was the fundamental difference between employment and ownership. My brother's stores had managers. My sister's marketing job ended at 5 p.m. My responsibility to my practice and patients never stopped. Innovation became my competitive edge. I researched affordable technology upgrades, implementing digital patient records before many larger practices. I developed comprehensive treatment plans that prioritized preventative care, saving patients money long-term while building loyalty. My breakthrough came when I created specialized payment plans for extensive dental work. Many patients needed significant restoration but lacked insurance coverage or available funds. I structured interest-free payment options spread over months, making necessary treatment accessible without financial hardship. Word spread, and patients began traveling from neighboring communities specifically for these programs. Hiring my first employee marked a significant milestone. Laura Rivera, a dental assistant with 10 years of experience, took a chance on my small practice when she could have earned more elsewhere. She shared my patient-centered philosophy and brought invaluable skills and efficiency. I was tired of the assembly line approach, she explained during her interview. I want to work somewhere that values quality care. With Laura handling chairside assistance, I could focus more on treatment and less on preparation, increasing our efficiency without sacrificing patient experience. 6 months later, I hired Rebecca Chen as a part-time hygienist, allowing us to offer preventative care appointments alongside restorative treatment. Adding Taylor Morris as a receptionist the following year transformed our front office operations. Her warm personality and organizational skills improved everything from scheduling to insurance processing. For the first time, I occasionally left the office before 7 p.m., trusting my growing team to handle closing procedures. This small measure of freedom highlighted how much I'd sacrificed personally. At 32, my dating life was virtually non-existent. Friends had stopped inviting me to gatherings, assuming I'd decline. My condo, while technically my residence, functioned more as a place to sleep between workdays than an actual home. The physical toll became increasingly evident. Chronic back pain from hours of leaning over patients required weekly chiropractic adjustments. Stress-induced insomnia left me exhausted despite my body's desperate need for rest. A routine physical revealed elevated blood pressure that my doctor attributed directly to overwork and anxiety. You need to establish better work-life balance, she advised while writing a prescription I was reluctant to fill. I'll cut back when the practice is stable, I promised, knowing it was likely a lie. Family tensions peaked during a holiday dinner in my 3rd year of practice. James had just opened his 3rd store, and my parents couldn't stop praising his business acumen. Mackenzie and her husband Ryan had purchased a luxury condo with a little help from our parents, help that had never been offered to me. When conversation finally turned to my practice, my father's question stung more than he probably intended. So, is your little tooth business staying afloat? It's a full-service dental practice, Dad, not a tooth business, I corrected, trying to keep my tone light. And yes, we're growing steadily. Abigail cleans teeth for a living, Dad, James laughed. It's not exactly revolutionary. Actually, I do comprehensive dental care, I countered, feeling my professional accomplishments diminished yet again. Restorative procedures, surgical extractions, cosmetic dentistry. Well, it keeps you busy, my mother interrupted, clearly uninterested. James just landed a contract with that new tech company. 300 new phone plans. I excused myself early that night, driving home with tears of frustration blurring my vision. The family that should have been proudest of my achievements couldn't even bother to understand what I actually did. Despite these personal challenges, the practice continued its upward trajectory. Our patient base grew to over 800 active patients. Our reputation for quality care and financial accessibility spread through word of mouth. By the end of year 3, we were consistently operating in the black, not wildly profitable, but sustainable. I celebrated this milestone alone in my office after hours, toasting with a plastic cup of grocery store champagne while reviewing our quarterly financials. The numbers confirmed what I barely dared believe: Reynolds Family Dental had survived its most vulnerable period. Against all odds and expectations, we were going to make it. The 4th year marked our definitive turning point. January began with a fully booked schedule and waitlisted new patients, a scenario I'd fantasized about during those early months of desperate patient recruitment. By March, we'd outgrown our space, with hygiene appointments scheduled 6 weeks out and restorative procedures booking nearly a month in advance. When the insurance office next door relocated to a larger building, I immediately approached my landlord about expanding. The additional 1,200 square feet would allow for 3 more treatment rooms, a dedicated sterilization area, and a small staff lounge, luxuries I hadn't dared imagine during our startup phase. "You'll need to sign another 5-year lease," the landlord cautioned. "And I'll require 3 months security deposit for the expansion." For years earlier, those terms would have terrified me. Now, with our consistent growth and the practice's established reputation, I signed without hesitation. The renovation proceeded efficiently this time, with proper funding and professional contractors handling all aspects of the build-out. We remained open throughout construction, with temporary plastic barriers separating our original space from the expansion zone. Patients tolerated the occasional construction noise with good humor, many expressing excitement about our growth. "You deserve this," Dr. Reynolds, Mrs. Wilson, now our longest-standing patient, told me. "You built something special here." With the expanded space came the opportunity to add providers. Dr. Michael Parker, 2 years out of dental school and disenchanted with corporate dentistry, joined our team 3 days weekly. His gentle approach with anxious patients and expertise in root canal therapy complemented my skills perfectly. Dr. Eleanor Wright, an experienced dentist returning to practice after raising her children, rounded out our clinical team with her exceptional diagnostic abilities and extensive experience with geriatric patients. For the first time, Reynolds Family Dental offered coverage 5 days a week without my personal presence being required for every operating hour. Our technological capabilities expanded significantly. We invested in 3D imaging equipment that improved diagnostic accuracy while reducing radiation exposure. Our Serec machine allowed for same-day crowns, eliminating temporary restorations and repeat appointments. A convenience our patients particularly appreciated. The Boston Business Journal featured me in their Healthcare Entrepreneurs Under 40 section, highlighting our innovative approach to patient financing and community outreach. The recognition brought unexpected attention from dental supply companies eager to partner with our growing practice and dental students requesting shadowing opportunities. With the practice finally stable, I forced myself to address my neglected personal life. I scheduled my first real vacation, a solo week in Hawaii where I explicitly promised myself not to check email or call the office. The prospect of disconnecting completely terrified me, but Dr. Parker and Dr. Wright insisted they could manage any emergencies. "You build systems that work without you," Dr. Parker pointed out during a team meeting. "Trust them." That week on Maui became transformative. Without the constant pressure of patient care and business management, I rediscovered parts of myself that had been suppressed under years of stress and single-minded focus. I hiked volcanic trails, tried surfing, badly, and spent unstructured hours reading novels instead of dental journals. On my return, staff noticed the difference immediately. "You look years younger," Laura commented. "Hawaii clearly agrees with you." Financial milestones accumulated rapidly that year. We paid off the equipment loan 6 months ahead of schedule. I established a proper retirement plan with employer matching for all full-time staff. Our cash reserves grew sufficiently to weather any reasonable emergency without threatening the practice's stability. Perhaps most significantly, I purchased a modest but comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood 15 minutes from the office. After years of treating my condo as little more than a place to sleep, I discovered unexpected pleasure in creating a true home, selecting furniture that prioritized comfort over function, planting a small garden, even adopting a rescue cat named Luna who quickly claimed the sunny window seat as her domain. My improved work-life balance created space for dating, something I'd dismissed as impossible during the practice's struggling years. Through a patient's introduction, I met Brian Callahan, an architectural engineer whose kind humor and patient understanding made him uniquely compatible with my still demanding schedule. Unlike previous short-lived relationships, Brian viewed my professional dedication as admirable rather than problematic. You built something meaningful, he said after I gave him a tour of the practice. That's incredibly impressive. By year's end, Reynolds Family Dental had truly become the premier dental practice in our area. Our patient base exceeded 2,000. We'd expanded to 7 full-time staff and 3 doctors. Our innovative approaches to patient care had been featured in dental publications. Most importantly, we'd maintained our founding philosophy of accessible, high-quality dentistry despite our growth. During a quarterly planning meeting, Dr. Wright suggested we consider opening a second location. There's clearly demand, she noted, reviewing our waitlist numbers. And you've created systems that could be replicated. The idea both excited and terrified me. Expansion meant new risks, but also broader impact. I promised to consider it seriously, something that would have been unimaginable just a few years earlier when daily survival consumed all my attention. That December, I attended my family's holiday gathering feeling genuinely confident for the first time. My practice was thriving. My personal life had found healthy balance. The constant anxiety that had accompanied me through the early years had finally subsided, replaced by measured pride in what I'd built through persistence and sacrifice. I couldn't have anticipated how quickly that hard-won peace would be shattered. The first hints of trouble appeared subtly during that December gathering. After years of dismissing my tooth business, my brother James asked detailed questions about our patient numbers and revenue streams. My parents, who had rarely shown interest in my practice beyond polite inquiries, suddenly wanted a tour of our expanded facility. "We should see what you've been working on all these years," my father said with unusual enthusiasm. My sister Mackenzie, now separated from her husband Ryan and living in a much smaller apartment than their luxury condo, mentioned her background in marketing could be really valuable for a growing practice like yours. I answered their questions transparently, proud to share our accomplishments but puzzled by their newfound interest. The shift made more sense when Brian, who had joined me for the gathering, later pointed out what I'd missed. "Did you notice they all seem to be struggling financially?" he asked as we drove home. "Your brother kept mentioning how retail is changing with online competition. Your parents talked about retirement concerns. Your sister's situation is obviously different post-separation." The observation unsettled me, but I dismissed potential implications. Surely my family wouldn't view my hard-won success as a solution to their financial challenges. I'd been explicit about the years of sacrifice required to build the practice. Within weeks, family members began appearing at the office unannounced. My mother stopped by just to see the place, but spent 40 minutes questioning Taylor about our scheduling system and patient volumes. My father arrived during a busy afternoon, asking to observe the operation while taking notes on a small pad. James's approach proved most direct. He invited me to lunch at an expensive downtown restaurant, ordering champagne before making his proposition. "I've been thinking about diversifying my business interests," he began after our appetizers arrived. "Retail is getting hammered by online competition. But healthcare, that's stable. Dentistry requires specialized training," I reminded him. "It's not something you just jump into." "I'm talking about the business side," he clarified. "Operations, management, growth strategy. Things I excel at." "We have an office manager," I explained. "Laura handles clinical operations, and I oversee business development. But you're a dentist, Abby. Your time is better spent with patients than worrying about expansion strategies and profit optimization." He leaned forward, lowering his voice confidentially. "I could help you take Reynolds Dental to the next level. Multiple locations, maybe even a regional brand." "Reynolds Family Dental," I corrected automatically. "And we're considering expansion, but carefully. Our reputation is built on quality care and personal attention." "Exactly why you need someone handling the business side." He pulled a folder from his briefcase. "I've drafted some preliminary thoughts on a partnership structure." The document he presented outlined a management agreement whereby James would receive a 30% ownership stake in exchange for handling business operations. The arrangement required no capital investment from him. His expertise apparently justified immediate equity in the practice I'd built from nothing. This isn't remotely reasonable, I said, pushing the folder back across the table. You're proposing significant ownership without financial investment or relevant experience. Family deserves to share in your success, he replied, his tone hardening. We're blood, Abby. That should count for something. It doesn't entitle you to ownership of my business, I countered, signaling for the check. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested. His parting comment stayed with me for days. Family takes care of family. Remember who was there before your practice succeeded. The irony of his statement, considering no family member had offered meaningful support during my struggling years, apparently escaped him entirely. My parents' approach proved more emotionally manipulative. They invited me to dinner, presenting a carefully crafted narrative about their retirement concerns. My father's company had restructured its pension program. My mother's teacher retirement fund had underperformed. They had helped James with business loans and contributed significantly to Mackenzie's wedding and subsequent divorce expenses. We always thought we'd be comfortable in retirement, my mother sighed. But with everything that's happened. We're not asking for handouts, my father interjected. But we thought perhaps there might be positions at your practice. Administrative roles we could handle part-time to supplement our retirement. Neither had relevant experience in healthcare administration or dental office management. My father's insurance background and mother's teaching career offered no transferable skills for our specialized environment. More concerning was their assumption that I could create unnecessary positions to accommodate family members, something that would violate my ethical responsibility to the practice. The practice can't sustain additional administrative staff right now, I explained gently. Our current team handles everything efficiently. James mentioned you're considering expansion, my father pressed. Surely that would create opportunities. Any expansion would prioritize clinical staff, I clarified. And we'd need experienced dental office personnel. My mother's expression hardened. I see. So there's no room for family in your success. That's not what I said, I protested. But the practice isn't a family employment agency. It's a professional healthcare facility with specific staffing needs. The conversation deteriorated from there, with thinly veiled accusations about my changed attitude since becoming successful. They referenced sacrifices they'd made for my education, conveniently forgetting I'd financed it entirely through loans and work. My father mentioned how they'd always supported my dreams, apparently rewriting history to erase their consistent dismissal of my career. My sister's approach relied heavily on emotional appeals. She called in tears one evening, describing her financial devastation following her separation from Ryan. He's fighting the prenup, she sobbed. My attorney says it could take years to settle. I can barely make rent, Abby. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said sincerely. Do you need a temporary loan until things stabilize? Actually, she sniffled, I was hoping for something more sustainable. You mentioned needing marketing help at Christmas, and that's literally my career. I hadn't mentioned any marketing needs, she had offered unsolicited services. But challenging her recollection would only escalate the conversation. We work with a specialized healthcare marketing consultant, I explained. Dental marketing requires specific knowledge of privacy regulations and professional standards. I could learn that, she insisted. And meanwhile handle your social media, website updates, community outreach. I'd work so hard, Abby. You know I would. Her employment history suggested otherwise. She'd changed jobs annually, usually citing toxic workplace culture or lack of recognition as reasons for departure. Her marketing experience consisted primarily of entry-level positions despite her degree. Let me think about potential projects that might suit your skills, I offered as compromise. But I can't promise a full-time position. I don't understand why this is even a question, she responded, her tone shifting from pleading to indignant. I supported you emotionally all those years you were building your practice. I listened to your struggles. Now that you're successful, you can't even help your sister? Those emotional support sessions had never occurred. During my most difficult years, Mackenzie had been preoccupied with her relationship with Ryan and subsequent wedding planning. Our conversations had centered almost exclusively on her life events, with my professional challenges dismissed as boring or depressing when I raised them. The frequency of family calls and visits increased dramatically over the following weeks. James began stopping by the practice during busy clinical hours, observing operations, and making unsolicited suggestions to staff about efficiency improvements. My parents mentioned my obligation to family in every conversation. Mackenzie alternated between tearful pleas and passive-aggressive social media posts about successful people forgetting where they came from. The situation reached critical mass during a family dinner James organized at his home. What he presented as a casual gathering quickly revealed itself as an ambush when he distributed copies of a formal family partnership agreement he'd had drafted by his attorney. The document proposed restructuring Reynolds Family Dental as Reynolds Family Holdings, with ownership distributed among family members. I would retain 51% ownership while performing all clinical duties. James would receive 20% for business management, my parents would share 20% as founding investors, despite having invested nothing, and Mackenzie would receive 9% for marketing services. This creates generational wealth for our entire family, James explained enthusiastically. We become a true family business. This isn't how business partnerships work, I responded, stunned by their audacity. Ownership is earned through capital investment or sweat equity. None of you contributed either during the years I built this practice. We're family, my father stated firmly. That transcends normal business arrangements. Family supported you when you were struggling, my mother added, conveniently rewriting history. Now it's your turn to support family. When exactly did you support me? I challenged, years of suppressed frustration finally surfacing. When you contributed nothing toward my education? When you dismissed my practice as a tooth business? When you criticized me for missing family gatherings because I was working 18-hour days to build something from nothing? Don't be dramatic, Abby, Mackenzie sighed. Everyone works hard. Not like this, I countered. None of you have any concept of what it took to build this practice. The financial risk. The physical toll. The years of sacrifice. And now that it's finally successful, you want ownership without having endured any of it. Family deserves to share in family success, James insisted. It's the natural order of things. I stood, gathering my belongings. There is nothing natural about this proposal. The practice remains solely mine, built with my education, my risk, my labor, and my sacrifice. This discussion is over. My mother's parting shot cut deepest. I didn't raise you to be selfish, Abigail. Family comes first. The irony of her statement, after years of their collective indifference to my struggles, left me speechless as I walked out the door. The family pressure intensified to unbearable levels over the following weeks. My phone accumulated dozens of missed calls and unread text messages daily. My email inbox filled with variations of the partnership proposal, each making minor concessions while maintaining the core demand for unearned ownership. James began positioning himself as involved with the practice despite having no official role. He contacted our dental supply representatives, introducing himself as handling business development for Reynolds Family Dental. He appeared at local business networking events claiming to represent our practice. Most disturbingly, he scheduled a meeting with our bank regarding expansion financing options without my knowledge or authorization. My parents employed more personal tactics. They informed extended family members about their new roles at my practice, roles that didn't exist. At a cousin's baby shower, my aunt congratulated me on finally bringing your parents into the business, creating an awkward situation I struggled to navigate gracefully. It's wonderful you're helping them secure their retirement, another relative commented. Family businesses are such a beautiful tradition. My mother called elderly patients she knew personally, inquiring about their experiences and suggesting she would ensure any concerns were addressed now that family was involved in management. These calls confused patients and created administrative challenges for our front office team. Mackenzie's approach proved most publicly damaging. She posted veiled references on social media about successful people forgetting those who helped them climb, tagging mutual acquaintances. She approached my staff when they encountered her in public, asking probing questions about office dynamics and suggesting the practice was undergoing management changes soon. The constant boundary violations took a severe personal toll. My sleep, finally regulated after years of stress-induced insomnia, deteriorated completely. I found myself waking at 3 a.m., mind racing with scenarios and counter-arguments. My appetite diminished until concerned staff began bringing me lunch, insisting I eat something during hectic clinical days. Physical symptoms manifested with alarming intensity. My previously controlled blood pressure spiked to concerning levels. Tension headaches became near-constant companions. During a particularly stressful week, I experienced heart palpitations that sent me to urgent care, fearing a cardiac event that thankfully proved to be anxiety-induced. The strain affected my relationship with Brian. Our previously relaxed evenings became dominated by family drama discussions and strategy sessions. Date nights were interrupted by urgent family calls I felt compelled to answer. My emotional bandwidth narrowed until I had little capacity for connection beyond crisis management. "I'm worried about you," Brian said one evening after I'd spent hours drafting response emails to James's latest demands. "This is affecting your health and our relationship. Maybe you should consider some compromise to restore peace." "Compromise implies both sides have legitimate positions," I responded, hurt by his suggestion. "There's nothing legitimate about their demands." "I understand that," he clarified. "But sometimes family relationships require different standards than business relationships. Maybe there's a middle ground that preserves your ownership while acknowledging their desire for involvement." "Would you suggest compromise if someone tried to claim your architectural designs because they're related to you?" I challenged. "This is my life's work, built while they actively dismissed it." His perspective, while well-intentioned, highlighted the fundamental disconnect even supportive outsiders experienced when viewing family-business conflicts. The emotional complexity and historical context remained invisible to those who hadn't lived it. The practice environment inevitably suffered despite my best efforts to compartmentalize. Staff noticed my distraction during meetings. Clinical focus required increasingly Herculean concentration. Dr. Parker tactfully mentioned patient comments about my seeming preoccupied during procedures. The situation reached crisis point when James arrived unannounced during a full clinical day, demanding access to our financial records and patient statistics for partnership preparation purposes. Taylor appropriately denied access to confidential information, resulting in a heated exchange that disrupted the entire office and distressed waiting patients. Laura called me from a treatment room, voice tight with controlled urgency. "You need to handle this immediately. He's creating a scene in the reception area." I excused myself from my patient, promised to return shortly, and confronted James in our small staff lounge after Taylor wisely redirected him there. "This is completely unacceptable," I stated firmly. "You have no authority to access practice records, and your behavior is disrupting patient care. As your future business partner, I have every right to review financial performance," he countered. "You're being unnecessarily difficult about standard due diligence." "There is no partnership, James. There never will be. You need to leave immediately before I call security." "This isn't over, Abby," he promised while reluctantly gathering his belongings. "Family takes care of its own, one way or another." The incident forced me to acknowledge the situation required professional intervention. I scheduled an urgent consultation with Catherine Martinez, a healthcare attorney specializing in dental practice management. "Unfortunately, these family entitlement scenarios aren't uncommon once practices become profitable," she explained after reviewing my situation. "The good news is you've maintained clear ownership documentation and haven't made any verbal agreements that might be construed as promises." "They're claiming family relationship creates implied partnership rights," I explained. "It absolutely doesn't," she assured me. "Your family has no legal claim whatsoever. They provided no capital investment, performed no services, and received no formal or informal ownership promises." Her confidence provided temporary relief, but she acknowledged the legal clarity wouldn't resolve the emotional complexity. "I recommend consulting with a family business therapist," she suggested. "The legal boundaries are clear, but navigating family relationships requires different expertise." Following her advice, I scheduled sessions with Dr. Alan Nelson, a psychologist specializing in family business dynamics. Our initial consultation provided crucial perspective on the underlying patterns. "Your family appears to be operating from what we call a family-first value system," he explained. "In this framework, family members automatically deserve access to resources held by other family members, regardless of contribution." "While I've always operated from a merit-based value system," I suggested. "Exactly. You believe rewards should correspond to effort, risk, and contribution. Neither system is inherently wrong, but they're fundamentally incompatible in business contexts." His validation of my position provided immense psychological relief. For months, I'd questioned whether I was being unreasonably selfish, as my family consistently claimed. Understanding our clash represented fundamentally different value systems rather than my personal failing restored some emotional equilibrium. Dr. Nelson also identified concerning patterns in my family's approach. "Their tactics display elements of what we call financial emotional abuse. They're using manipulation, guilt, and public pressure to coerce compliance with unreasonable demands." "So how do I handle this without destroying family relationships?" I asked. "That depends on whether they can respect boundaries once clearly established," he replied thoughtfully. "Some family systems can adjust when limits are firmly defined. Others cannot tolerate any boundary enforcement and force an ultimatum, compliance or estrangement." With guidance from both professionals, I developed a comprehensive response strategy. Catherine drafted formal cease and desist letters prohibiting my family members from representing themselves as affiliated with Reynolds Family Dental in any capacity. Dr. Nelson helped craft scripts for establishing clear verbal boundaries in personal interactions. I scheduled a staff meeting to address the situation transparently. "I apologize for the disruption my family's behavior has caused," I began. "I want to assure everyone that ownership and management of this practice remains unchanged." Their unanimous support moved me deeply. "We've seen how hard you worked to build this place," Laura affirmed. "None of us believes anyone else deserves ownership." Dr. Parker added, "We'll help enforce professional boundaries if they continue making uninvited appearances." Even Taylor, our usually reserved receptionist, spoke up. "We've got your back, Dr. Reynolds. This practice succeeds because of your leadership, not despite it." Brian, after initially suggesting compromise, educated himself about family business dynamics and shifted to unequivocal support. "I didn't fully understand the situation initially," he acknowledged. "But I see clearly now this isn't about reasonable family involvement, it's about entitlement to something they didn't help build." His perspective strengthened my resolve to establish firm boundaries despite the emotional cost. "I may lose my family over this," I confessed during a quiet dinner at home. "They've made it clear they view my refusal as betrayal." "If maintaining relationship requires surrendering your life's work," he responded, "that's not family, it's exploitation." Armed with professional guidance, staff support, and personal conviction, I prepared for the inevitable confrontation that would either establish sustainable boundaries or force relationship reconfiguration with my family. The outcome remained uncertain, but my commitment to protecting what I'd built had crystallized into unshakable determination. After weeks of preparation with my legal and psychological advisors, I scheduled the necessary family meeting at a neutral location, a private room at a local restaurant. The formal setting would help maintain professional boundaries while providing privacy for potentially emotional exchanges. I arrived early to arrange the room with Catherine's help. We set up a small projector for my presentation and organized folders containing documentation of the practice's development timeline, financial investments, and growth metrics. These materials weren't legally necessary but would visually reinforce the years of work and risk that had created the successful practice my family now coveted. My parents arrived precisely on time, expressions guarded but expectant. Mackenzie followed minutes later, avoiding eye contact while taking her seat. James arrived last, carrying his own folder of documents, likely another variation of his partnership proposal. "Thank you all for coming," I began once everyone was settled. "I've asked for this meeting to address the ongoing situation regarding Reynolds Family Dental and to establish clear boundaries moving forward." I proceeded with a comprehensive presentation detailing the practice's history, from initial loan rejections through renovation challenges to the years of financial insecurity. Financial slides illustrated my personal investment, retirement funds liquidated, second mortgage on my condo, credit cards maximized. Timeline graphics highlighted the 7-day workweeks, missed holidays, and health consequences I'd endured during the building years. During this entire period, I noted while displaying a slide showing family involvement metrics, I received zero financial investment from family members, no labor contribution, and minimal emotional support. My requests for assistance were consistently declined. My mother shifted uncomfortably. My father examined his hands. James maintained steady eye contact, expression unreadable. Mackenzie appeared genuinely surprised by some information. Perhaps she'd truly been unaware of my struggles during her wedding-focused years. I'd built Reynolds Family Dental through personal sacrifice, financial risk, and professional expertise, I continued. Its current success represents the culmination of those investments. While I value our family relationship, I must establish non-negotiable boundaries regarding the practice. I distributed folders containing formal statements prepared by Catherine. These documents outline my position clearly. Reynolds Family Dental remains solely owned by me. No family partnerships will be considered. No ownership stakes will be distributed without appropriate financial investment and board approval. James immediately began objecting, but I raised my hand to continue. "I recognize this creates disappointment. I understand you may have developed expectations regarding involvement in the practice now that it's successful. However, those expectations developed without my agreement or encouragement." "Family businesses are meant to benefit the entire family," my father interjected. "That's the natural order of things." "That applies to businesses built collaboratively by family members," I corrected gently. Reynolds Family Dental was built independently after family explicitly declined involvement during its vulnerable years. "We're still family," my mother insisted. "That should count for something." "It does," I acknowledged. "Which is why I'm offering reasonable alternatives to ownership demands." I outlined potential legitimate engagements, employment opportunities based on actual qualifications and available positions, potential for future investment opportunities with proper capital contribution, patient referral bonuses matching those offered to non-family patients. "These options respect both family connection and business integrity," I explained. "They maintain appropriate boundaries while offering pathways for mutually beneficial involvement." James closed his folder with deliberate slowness. "This isn't what we discussed. The family partnership was never agreed to by me," I finished firmly. "And never will be." "So you're choosing business over family," my mother concluded, tears forming. "After everything we've done for you." The familiar guilt tactic nearly triggered my ingrained people-pleasing response, but Dr. Nelson's coaching helped me maintain clarity. "I'm choosing appropriate boundaries that respect both the business I built and our family relationship," I corrected. "The current demands don't respect either." "You've changed," my father stated flatly. "Success has made you selfish." "I've grown," I countered. "Success has taught me to value my work and enforce healthy boundaries." The conversation deteriorated rapidly. James threatened vague legal action despite Catherine's documentation proving its futility. My mother suggested I would regret abandoning family when I needed them most. My father implied holiday gatherings might no longer include me given my attitude toward family obligations. Mackenzie surprised me by remaining largely silent during the escalating accusations. When she finally spoke, her perspective seemed genuinely shifted by the presentation information. "I didn't realize how much you struggled," she admitted quietly. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I tried," I responded simply. "Many times." The meeting concluded without resolution beyond clarified positions. My family departed with various expressions of disappointment, anger, and in Mackenzie's case, thoughtful reconsideration. I remained in the empty conference room afterward, simultaneously drained and relieved by the necessary confrontation. The aftermath proved predictably difficult. My parents implemented their implied threat of family event exclusion, orchestrating holiday gatherings without informing me. James pursued his legal threats briefly before his attorney presumably explained their futility. Distant relatives received one-sided accounts of my betrayal, resulting in awkward encounters when we crossed paths at community events. Rather than allowing the estrangement to derail my progress, I channeled my energy into practice growth and personal development. The expanding patient base justified serious consideration of Dr. Wright's suggestion regarding a second location. Market research identified an underserved community 15 minutes from our original office, a perfect expansion opportunity without overextending our resources. We leased suitable space, applying lessons from our first location to streamline the setup process. Having established relationships with dental suppliers, contractors, and financial institutions eliminated many initial challenges. The second location opened 8 months after our family confrontation, instantly attracting patients through our established reputation. During this professional growth period, I maintained consistent work with Dr. Nelson on processing the family estrangement. His guidance helped me navigate the complex grief of enforcing necessary boundaries while mourning the supportive family relationship I'd always desired but never truly experienced. Family estrangement is particularly challenging because it contradicts our cultural narrative about family as unconditional support, he explained during a particularly difficult session after my exclusion from Thanksgiving dinner became apparent. Intellectually, I know I made the right decision, I acknowledged. Emotionally, I still feel like I failed by not finding a solution that preserved both my boundaries and family harmony. That assumes both were equally available options, he noted. In relationships with entrenched entitlement patterns, establishing healthy boundaries often necessarily disrupts harmony that was actually dysfunction in disguise. His perspective helped me gradually release the misplaced guilt that had accompanied my boundary enforcement. I focused instead on nurturing genuine supportive relationships with chosen family, friends and colleagues who respected my accomplishments and boundaries equally. 6 months into our estrangement, Mackenzie reached out unexpectedly. "I've been thinking about everything you shared," she explained over coffee. I didn't understand what building the practice really entailed. Our conversation revealed her perspective had genuinely evolved. Her divorce finalized, she'd secured a marketing position with a local company and experienced for the first time the satisfaction of truly earning her achievements. "I'd like to repair our relationship," she offered. "As sisters, not business partners." Her sincerity prompted cautious reconnection. We established clear parameters. No practice discussions unless I initiated them, no intermediary role regarding other family members, commitment to mutual respect of professional boundaries. Over subsequent months, Mackenzie demonstrated consistent respect for these guidelines. When an administrative position eventually opened at our original location, her application underwent standard evaluation processes without expectation of preferential treatment. Her marketing background, coupled with newly developed skills from her current position, actually qualified her appropriately for the role. "I want to earn this," she emphasized during her formal interview. No family shortcuts. Her eventual hiring represented legitimate qualification rather than capitulation to family pressure, a distinction that proved crucial for staff morale and my own boundary maintenance. My parents' position softened gradually after witnessing Mackenzie's successful integration through appropriate channels. Initial contact came through carefully worded birthday cards, progressing to brief phone conversations that respectfully avoided practice ownership discussions. Approximately 18 months after our confrontation, they requested dinner to discuss where things stand. Their acknowledgement of boundary violations remained incomplete, but they expressed genuine desire for relationship restoration with explicit agreement to respect my practice autonomy. "We may not fully understand your perspective," my father offered, "but we miss our daughter more than we want involvement in her business." James proved least receptive to boundary enforcement. His own business ventures continued struggling, reinforcing his conviction that family resources should be communally accessible. We established limited contact governed by strict practice discussion prohibition, a necessary compromise to maintain any relationship while protecting my professional boundaries. Throughout this family reconfiguration process, Reynolds Family Dental continued flourishing. Our second location achieved profitability ahead of projections. Our team expanded to include specialists offering comprehensive care without external referrals. We implemented community initiatives including a scholarship fund for dental students from disadvantaged backgrounds, creating opportunity pathways I'd lacked during my education struggle. My relationship with Brian deepened into engagement, his unwavering support during the family crisis confirming our compatibility through both celebration and challenge. His architectural expertise proved invaluable during our expansion planning, though we maintained appropriate professional boundaries regarding his formal involvement. The journey from desperate practice launch to flourishing multi-location business taught invaluable lessons about perseverance, boundaries, and authentic support. Success built through sacrifice can only truly be shared with those who understand its cost, whether family by blood or by choice. Genuine love celebrates achievement without demanding ownership. Real support acknowledges effort rather than just results. Most importantly, I learned that establishing boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for both personal well-being and business integrity. The practice I built now serves thousands of patients with the patient-centered philosophy that inspired its creation. That impact represents the true measure of success, far beyond financial metrics or family approval. I built this clinic to heal others, but the most important healing was learning that genuine love respects boundaries and celebrates achievement without seeking to claim it. The practice continues growing, not despite family challenges but because addressing them properly protected the foundation upon which everything was built: integrity, perseverance, and unwavering commitment to values beyond profit. Have you ever had to protect something you built from entitled demands? How did you navigate maintaining boundaries while preserving important relationships? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about navigating complex professional and personal challenges. If this resonated with you, please like and share with others who might be struggling with similar boundary issues in family or business contexts. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember that your achievements deserve protection and celebration, regardless of others' expectations.